All right, all right. It is Tuesday night. It is time for another Conversations with Commodores. I got True Seven coming out of Funiac Springs, Florida. Tavarus Hogans, how you doing tonight, Seven? What's going on?
Man, everything is going on. I'm doing amazing. Hey, we've got an electric atmosphere tonight. Let's go. Anchor down.
Let's go. Let's anchor down. That's right, guys. We got us a good one tonight. We got an entrepreneur. We got a fella who has got more energy, more get up and go, always positive, got some good stuff going on. We're going to find out how somebody goes from Defuniac Springs up to Nashville over to Jacksonville, Florida. I want to say hey to Emmitt Smith, who's just joined us. As you guys roll in, show some love to True Seven here. Tavarus, growing up in Defuniac Springs, I know where it is because I grew up in Dothan.
Yes,
I
sir.
want you to tell folks a little bit about Defuniac Springs. Where is it and what's it all about?
Man, small town USA. It's centered right in between the Gulf of Mexico. We've got Sandestin and Destin on the south end, and we've got the state of Alabama to the north of us. So there's probably maybe a 40-mile stretch from the Alabama line to the Gulf, and we sit about 20 miles in between both of those. So small town USA, we probably had one, two, we may have had three stoplights growing up, one high school in the county, actually two high schools in the county. It's grown a little bit since then, but small 3A high school, humble beginnings, and I'm happy to be from there.
And who were y'all's, did you have any natural annual rivals in sports? What schools nearby? Who did y'all consider to be the rival?
Yeah, so Freeport High School, another small school, that was our rival. There were some other small schools in the area. Baker High School, they were a smaller school. They did really well. When we started getting up into district play, we had the likes of Crestview, who was a rival for a small amount of time. We had Chipley, Florida, Marianna, Florida, district rivals for a small amount of time also. So a lot of good football in that area.
Yeah, guys, this is all along that Florida panhandle. Think Pensacola to Tallahassee, that whole stretch right through there. Not on the beach, not in Alabama, but it's that middle part of the state. All right, we got
right
to
on
talk about,
I-10.
That's right. There you go, on I-10. Growing up, how many kids graduated in your high school senior class out of Defuniac Springs?
Listen, I remember the number specifically. It is 167.
Wow, that's actually bigger than I thought. Well, you had to have been
But hold on, ask me why I know.
All right, I gotta know. I gotta know.
Because I graduated number 6 in that class of 167. So, when you tell somebody you graduated 100th or 10th or 3rd, you got to put some context to it.
That's right.
If I graduated 3 out of 4, that's not that good. But if I graduate 6 out of 167, it's okay.
Man, that's more than okay. I'll take that. That's a Vanderbilt man right there. Now, I know you had to have played every sport known to man, because I'm sure all those local coaches wanted you, depending on what season it was. Did you have a favorite sport? Did you have one that you thought you were a little better in, excelled a little more? Did you like one more than the other? Or were you just the kind of athlete, just give me a ball, give me a glove, let me just play whatever's going on?
So interestingly enough, I didn't even really consider myself that great of an athlete. I did play every sport. In high school, I set a record at my high school. I got 11 letters. And it was interesting. I didn't set out to play these different sports. But as I was going through high school, I wanted to take advantage of every opportunity that I had. And I just didn't want to leave any regrets. So I played basketball, I played baseball, I ran track. Honestly, if I could have played tennis, I really wanted to play tennis in high school. If I could go back, I would play tennis and I would play golf also.
When did you sleep? Man, when did you sleep?
So fortunately, sports kept me busy and it kept me out of trouble.
Well, that's what I was going to say. In a small town, if you don't have something organized going on or a full-time job in addition to school, you could probably get yourself in trouble pretty quickly.
Yeah, so I was always consumed. I mean, springtime sports, fall sports, summer practices, all of that. That is the single reason that I'm here today, and not somewhere with less rights.
Now, Emmitt Smith is from Escambia County, not too far from you to the west.
Oh yeah.
He was about my age, a little older than you, and is one of the all-time greats, regardless if it's high school, college, or pros, of course. But he was such a legendary figure coming out of Escambia, and then some more guys. I want to say Trent Richardson, maybe from down there, or some other well-known backs. But speaking of Emmitt, how much of an influence, or how much of a figure was he on that Florida Panhandle to football players, or did he not really factor that much in y'all's world?
So back around that time, Walton High School, we won a state championship in 1985.
Mm-hmm.
And not to take away from Emmitt, but we had a running back by the name of Dexter McNabb, who
Mm-hmm.
also went to the University of Florida and
Mm-hmm.
played in that same backfield with him, a little bit bigger back.
Yeah.
So he was our superstar back then. So
Mm-hmm.
while Emmitt was big, we were consumed with somebody that we could see, touch, and feel. And Dexter McNabb was that guy for us.
I'm surprised. I forgot about him because he was my year. And I used to keep up with all the top athletes. Not that I was one, but I like to follow those guys all through the Wiregrass where I'm from, and the Florida Panhandle. I forgot about Dexter. That's right. He certainly would have been that figure, not Emmitt, in y'all's world. That's for sure. Well, at what point in high school or junior high did it start to percolate in your thought process, maybe with your family discussions about not just going to college, but playing a sport in college? And then how did you settle on football as opposed to any other sport?
So to answer the earlier question, I was a basketball player. I was born and bred a Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket. Kenny Anderson was my guy. I was going to play basketball, and I was signed, sealed, and delivered.
Wow.
Fortunately, we had a head coach that had went to Troy State, and he came in during my sophomore year. I didn't play football until my freshman year in high school.
Wow.
I played 1 year Pee Wee football, and then I played another half of a year. But I was small, I was undersized, and I didn't really hit a growth spurt really until my freshman year in high school.
Wow.
So transitioning from the 8th grade, I remember I was in 8th grade. So you have spring ball in high school. They would let the 8th graders go over and practice with the high schoolers in that spring season. And a couple of friends of mine that played, Dale Barge, Craig Roberts, they challenged me. They said, I bet you won't come out and play football.
Mm-hmm.
And the type of temperament that I have, it's just tough for me to turn down a challenge. And once I got there, I was hooked. I mean, I didn't come from a family of quitters, so I couldn't quit.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, we had this head coach that came in, and he had some experience. He knows some people in the college ranks and different things like that. And I started getting noticed. I started getting more confident. I started at quarterback on varsity my sophomore year. And I think that's what really changed it for me. You know, the leadership that comes in that position at such a young age, that was a turning point for me.
Well, what was your growth spurt in 9th grade? What'd you go for? How many inches? How big did you end up being?
You know, I don't know what the growth spurt was, but there's a friend of mine that he's probably, he's maybe 6'1". So in middle school, he was probably 5'8" or so. And I came up to like his stomach. I was probably like 4'6". And the difference in that picture is just ridiculous. And now, we don't look eye to eye, but he's probably 2 inches taller than me now, which is crazy.
That is crazy. That is crazy. Well, Tavarus, I know that you don't just, as a kid growing up, even in a small town, doesn't matter if you're a big town, doesn't matter where you grow up, you can be all consumed in sports. That's one thing. But to be number 6 ultimately in your graduating class, there had to be some smarts thrown in there a little bit. Who or what was your motivating factors or influence on the academic side of things away from sports that kept you on the straight, if you will, so to make sure that you got your books in order?
Yeah, I don't know who had the conversation with me, but I remember conversations about just living every aspect of your life a certain way. And I'll tell a quick story and then I'll explain that a little bit more. But I do remember specifically the last semester or whatever it was of my third grade year. And I had A's, B's, and a couple of C's. I remember looking at my progress report and I knew I hadn't really applied myself. So I said, something happened. I don't know what it was that clicked, but I said, you know what? I'm going to apply myself and just see what happens, because the effort wasn't there. Mm-hmm. And literally in high school, from then on out, I never made a C again in my life. I would make either all A's and B's or all A's. Mm-hmm. But to expand on the earlier statement, I was a decent athlete then, but if you're going to be successful in the, on the sports field, those same things, those same tools and traits that it takes to be successful there is transferable in the classroom. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to clean up my entire life. I didn't want to be a superstar out here and then a bum over here and then decent over here and average over here. I wanted to put the same amount of effort into everything that I was doing. So I started competing in the classroom the same way I would compete on the sports field.
Love it. I'm telling you, that's the athlete coming out, always competing.
Yeah.
And, speaking of some athletes, we got some of them rolling in. We got Russell Nicole.
Okay, I see you, Russ.
Alfonso Harvey in the house.
Fine.
Thank you guys for showing up for True 7 in the house, talking to us a little bit about the Funiac Springs, Florida, that hotbed of athletic talent coming out of Walton High School. Let's talk a little bit about family life. Let's talk about, do you have siblings? You grew up with a lot of kids in the neighborhood. If it was time to go play, and I suspect you weren't one of those kids who laid on the couch playing video games and all that.
Nah,
take us into your childhood neighborhood. What games are we playing? How did you know when it was time to come home? Stuff like that.
So everybody played at my house. Fortunately, I had the basketball goal. Mm-hmm. I literally had the football field and I had the baseball field.
Oh, wow.
We had it all there. And so, I mean, as early as 8 o'clock in the morning and until you're orange at night, because we're playing on a dirt court. I mean, literally all day. My house was a neighborhood sports complex.
Wow. I bet you had to get hosed off with all that red clay.
Couldn't even come in the house. Couldn't even come in the house. Like, take those clothes off, boy, before you walk in this door.
We had a rule, Tavarus, growing up in Dothan. Our driveway, unfortunately, was adjacent to the neighbor's property was right over behind our goal. And the owners of that house, their bedroom was the closest bedroom to where we bounced the basketball, probably not 30 feet, 40 feet away. So we couldn't play basketball after 9 o'clock at night. And I know you probably had some kind of rules about when you had to be in. I just remember that because I remember the lady of the house, and we were good friends with them, but we were kids. We just wanted to be out and enjoying and not getting in trouble. She'd come out and just kind of wave that finger. Anyway, I just remember, childhood stuff you remember.
So when you're growing up in small town USA, your neighbors aren't that close. So we didn't have that problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. And I bet that was pretty cool. You having all the sports fields at your house. You didn't have very far to go when it was time to come in for dinner or come in for the night.
Not at all.
When you were a kid and even into the high school years, you talked about Dexter and McNabb. Who were some of your influence? Who did you try to pattern your game after when you were in junior high and in high school?
Yeah, so from a basketball standpoint, it was Kenny Anderson. Obviously, you like the Michael Jordans and people like that, but I played point guard. I got it organized. I was the quarterback, unbeknownst to me, on the basketball court. Like I said, I didn't play football until my freshman year. So it was Kenny Anderson in those early years. I liked the North Carolina Tar Heels, Montrose, and all of those guys.
Oh, yeah.
I loved those guys growing up. When it came to football, Dexter McNabb, he was one of the guys. He went to the University of Florida, and you probably recognize these other names. Myrick Anderson, He played defensive back at University of Florida. I think he was the next year. And Ed Robinson, he played linebacker there. So those were some names from the Funiac Springs that did something. I had a cousin named Anthony Campbell. He'll go into the Hall of Fame at my high school. I was telling him this story at my wedding. I remember going to his mom's house and seeing his college picture on the wall. And that was motivation for me, because I wanted a college photo of the university that I attended on scholarship on my parents' wall. So that served as motivation. There's a good friend of mine that was the best man in my wedding, a guy named Dale Barge. He played on varsity his freshman year. He was motivation for me. He played in the backfield that I was on my sophomore year. So all of those guys collectively inspired me to go through what I went through.
And you know, even though you're good friends with them or related to them at the time, you may or may not have ever even told them that, you know, about their influence on you. And that's the stories I love, because that's coming from inside. That's not a parent or an older brother, you know, bearing down on you saying, you better work on this, you better do that. That's coming from within. And to me, that's the best kind of results, because now I want to fast forward. We're going to come back and forth, but I want to come back. I want to fast forward to you. Did you get to put on the wall at your family's home a picture of you in a Vanderbilt uniform?
Did I?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. They have that. They have the helmet. They have jerseys. Like, they have the whole kit and caboodle.
Oh man, I'd love to see what that wall looks like. I bet that's a wall of fame right there. That's awesome. That's awesome.
It is for us. I mean,
That's
only
right.
for a select few.
That's so cool. Guys, I'm talking with number 7, True Tavarus Hogans. He's in Jacksonville, Florida. We're going to get to his businesses in a few minutes, but we hadn't even gotten to Vanderbilt yet. And we're 20 minutes into this conversation. This is awesome. Let's talk about the recruitment process. It's one thing to be the current athletes in the age of social media. You can't hide. You really can't. You can be from the Funiac Springs. They're going to find you because social media has already got you out there, whether you do it as the athlete or someone does it for you. But back in our day, back in your day, there was no such thing as social media to this extent. There certainly was no huddle. There was no highlight reels that just automatically can be shared on YouTube. Certainly back not in the early 90s. How did your name get out there? How did folks find you on the recruiting trail?
Yeah, and so it's interesting. In this age of social media, there wasn't hype around athletes. You either could play or you couldn't play. So we couldn't speed the video up or show the top 10 clips. Like, we're coming to recruit you. We're going to watch you. We're not going to watch just game tape. We're going to see you live. We're going to see your body language, all of that. So again, I was fortunate. Bill Regal, he went to Troy State. He came, he was my head coach from my sophomore year on, and he had relationships. So he got my name out there, and we were able to, my senior year, I humbly say this, everybody in the nation was recruiting me. I think, you know, Florida, when you're a receiver, you've got decent speed, you're going to get eyes on you. That was a pretty cool process. The whole, I want to shed light on this. And, you know, for many years, I was reluctant to share some of my recruiting stories. I was signed, sealed, and delivered a Gator growing up in Florida. Loving the Gators, Gator fan, all of that. I was signed, sealed, and delivered a Gator. My head coach, still love him to death. Notre Dame offered me my junior year, going into the summer, going into my junior year. They were the first school to offer me. Florida offered me. Everybody in the SEC offered me. Mickey Andrews came to my high school 2 days before signing date, and I wasn't allowed to talk to him for whatever reason. So I feel like behind the scenes, there was a play to get me to a certain university, because when signing day came, The only offers after talking with recruiting coaches, going on visits, having offers on the table, the only ones left was Vanderbilt, UCF, and Troy State. Mind you, the night before signing day, I can't remember the guy's name, but and God bless him, but he was a linebacker at Vandy. He transferred to Troy State. We were on the phone for 2 hours. He was trying to recruit me to go to Troy State.
Wow.
So on that night, I get up 1 o'clock in the morning. I turn the light on where my parents are, and this whole time they're like, "Listen, we support you wherever you go. It's your decision. You know, you've done the work. Wherever you want to go, we support you." So I turned on the light. I was like, "Hey, I'm going to Troy State. Like, I'm getting all this pressure. Forget it. That's where I'm going." My dad said, "Turn that light off, son. You're going to Vanderbilt." And I tell this story to say this, because we talk about how it happened. It was just by the grace of God. I tell this story. There were only 3 offers left. If I would have talked to Mickey Andrews and they would have offered me, I would have went to Florida State. At Florida.
I was going to say, for those of you who don't know, Coach Andrews was he was the number 2 guy behind Coach Bowden for decades. He was a very well-known recruiter, defensive coach, a Hall of Fame type coach. But go ahead, Tavarus.
Oh yeah, the guy. If anybody else would have offered Auburn or would have been on the table, Auburn, Alabama wasn't sexy back then. Alabama wasn't really on my radar, but I probably would have chose them. So when I was in college, Florida, Florida State, Michigan, UT, they all won national championships. If I had to do it all over again and every college was still on the table, I would still choose Vanderbilt.
Wow, that's high praise. Your dad says, "No, you're going to Vanderbilt." What was it was it just as simple as him telling you that, or did something click in your mind to say, that's the right place for me?
No, not at all. I mean, I'm a 17-year-old confused kid. If I show you the picture on National Signing Day, I'm not a happy kid. I'm a confused kid. Everybody else is smiling. They put the hat on. They pick the jersey up. I'm not happy about going to Vandy because I'm getting pressure to go elsewhere.
Sure.
That's why, and that's why I tell the story. That's why it's so much more impactful that it wasn't my decision. But if I had every university to choose from again, I would still choose Vandy.
Had you been up to the school before you decided to sign with them? Did you go on a visit?
Yeah, I had. And listen, it was a great trip. I always give Eric Vance a hard time because he was hosting me, but he ditched me off to Darrell Finklin. But Vandy had one of the best trips, and there are a lot of other athletes that can vouch for that. So I had committed to Vandy, but I was just confused, Bernard. Like,
sure.
Yeah.
Well, you're 17 years of age. You're making a big decision, a life-changing, life-altering path. Decision here. Did you go to one of the parties up in the stadium club? Were you part of that, or was that not your part of your recruitment process?
I can't confirm or deny.
And I'm here to say that I've heard that the statute of limitations has told for almost everybody who attended those parties. The DeGraff and Reeds have sworn me to secrecy, so we will just move on. We'll just assume that was part of your recruitment process. Now, you signed with Vanderbilt. Did you know anybody else in the signing class? Did you have contact with any of the other guys in your class before you showed up that summer to start camp?
Yeah, so it was interesting. There were a couple guys Bo Lancaster, who was a receiver, he was on the recruiting trip, that the visit that I was on that weekend. I remember Lamont Turner, Alvin McGrew, they were at the spring game, a couple other guys that were at the spring game when we went. So coming up to campus, it wasn't entirely new. I think I was one of the first people to get up that was not local to Nashville. Myself and AJ McGrew, I almost remember it like it was yesterday. I feel like we were there either May 20th or June 20th, but we were definitely one of the first two to get to campus.
Was your recruiting class brought in under Dowhauer, or were you under a different head coach at the time?
Yeah, we were under Howard for that one season.
Yeah, I could not remember the timing of things. I knew he was only there for the season, but I wasn't sure if he was there during recruitment time as well. Yeah. Did any of that have an impact on you when Howard, and I know I'm kind of skipping a little bit, you go from Howard to Woody, and that's, night and day as far as staff and administration and all of that. But sometimes that creates turnover in the roster. Did that impact you? Or did you know you were going to stay? Was there a doubt?
So I'm fortunate that there wasn't a transfer portal and that you would have to sit out a year, because that for a lot of people, there's that freshman year is tough. It's a transition year. So, you're facing a lot of new things, and there's no telling what would have happened if there was that possibility for me to transfer.
Yeah, when you have a coach that's only there for one season, that's what Nicole just said. If I wonder how many out of your class might have gone into the portal when Howard left. And I suspect there might have been several guys. I also want to welcome OJ Fleming to the show tonight. Hey, OJ.
Juice.
Here. Always glad when OJ joins us. Tavarus, that transition that you alluded to, going from Defuniak Springs to Nashville, Walton High School to Vanderbilt, not just from an athletic standpoint, not just from an academic standpoint, but also from a social standpoint. That's a lot of transition. Now, one of the benefits of going up in the summer, and I did this right after high school graduation, is you get your feet on the ground a little bit. You get a little bit of lay of the land for a month or two before you got to get thrown deep into fall camp. Were you homesick? Did you immediately take to Nashville campus and the guys? What was that like for you, if you remember all that?
Oh yeah, I remember it like yesterday. Myself and Alvin McGrew, we were staying in a house with a couple of our other classmates. We got a job with the landscaping crew. We were barely making enough money to pay the rent. We didn't even have enough money to eat. Myself and AJ, we went up before the team one day. I came in probably 185 or so. I had got down to like 167 because we didn't have enough food to eat. Like we weren't on scholarship yet, but we had a Vanderbilt scholarship and we couldn't eat. So fortunately, we had a job on campus. And once we told the guys what our situation was, anytime they saw us, they would bring us into the chow hall and make sure we were fed, make sure we were taken care of, and all of that. And that's just the kind of love and camaraderie and brotherhood that you get.
Well, I was just getting ready to say, now I understand that the place you guys lived on Long Boulevard, that was a palace. You really loved that place, treated it like it was your permanent home. How nice was that place?
So is that where it was, Long Boulevard?
According to Russ, he says it was a dump.
Yeah. Russ, were you in there with us? There were like 8 of us in this house.
That's and the fact that you just kind of giggled a little bit is why we do these conversations. Because you probably hadn't thought about that house, or maybe you did leading up to today. You probably hadn't thought about that house or all those dudes, and the fact that you guys didn't eat in a while. But you know what it does? It takes you back to a simpler time, a little more innocent time in your life. No mortgage, no all these huge responsibilities that we get as adults, because you're on the verge right there just before your scholarship. But it's not just you in that moment. It's you, and as you just described, it's your teammates, it's your brothers in arms. And there's no better feeling than teammates coming together like that. Russ do you remember the possum?
Russ, I've taken a couple hits, man. I don't remember everything.
Russ, I got to get you on the show to talk about the Long Boulevard house and the possum story. And I'm sure there's a whole bunch more stories. But going back to what I just said, Tavarus, do you agree with me that when you're thinking back, everything wasn't great, but it certainly wasn't horrible. And you're learning, you're getting to be buddies and friendships that you've now held for 30 years.
Oh yeah.
With guys that you're all coming from different parts of the country, but you're all there pretty much for the same reasons: get an education, play some ball, make some friendships, and start your next section, next part of your life. And you're all doing this together. You're not alone, is my point. Did any of that, I guess, resonate with you at all during that time? But usually it doesn't, because you're just going through it. But looking back, I could see where maybe it would.
Oh yeah, it definitely, it's almost impossible then, but looking back on it, absolutely. I'm finishing a manuscript, and literally this morning I was writing some of the acknowledgments, and I've got a couple of my teammates in there, and I'm like, I hate to even start naming people because you can't name everyone, but like I said, so many of those guys came through in the clutch for us. You know, Russ is talking about how we were just all packed into that house, man. Like, there are countless stories. And when you go back to the reunions 20 years from now, like, I can't wait to hear the possum story, because I have no idea what he's talking about right now. But yeah, that's when you really appreciate it. And, you know, to your point earlier, I really like to give guys their flowers. Like you were saying about my cousin. At my wedding, I shared that story with him. My best man, you know, the freshman that was on varsity, I shared that story with him because they appreciate it. Brooks Collins, who I don't know that we really got along that great. He was very inspirational. He had a very pivotal moment in my career at Vanderbilt. Like, I have to let those guys know how important they were. Yeah, so thank you for the opportunity.
Well, you know, the beautiful thing about what you just said is, not only did you recognize it at that time of their inspiration and how they drove you to be a better man, to be a better athlete, to be better at whatever it was, but then all these years later, you have the ability to communicate to them, to let them know. But knowing you as little as I do, and I know this is our second conversation in the last couple of weeks, I had the pleasure of interviewing Tavarus on a different show a while back. I bet that wasn't the first time you told them most recently. I bet you told them over the years, just seeing what kind of a friend I think that you are with folks.
Yeah, you know, I don't know. There's been a lot of growth in my career, and some of my classmates, they probably can attest to this. It's weird because there are some friends of mine that will tell you I'm one of the most unselfish people they know. I know I am very selfish. I think individually, a lot of us probably can say that, but I've had a lot of selfish motives, and I've just done a lot more maturing in this phase of my life. And you saying it's a blessing for me to have the opportunity, it's a blessing that I'm still living and able to tell them that, because if something would have happened and me not be here, they'll never get to hear those words that, you know, who knows what it's doing for them, but it has to be something positive.
Of course it is. Man, when you tell somebody you love them, when you tell somebody what they mean to you, and it could have just been a very small period of time in your life, or it could be somebody who's known you your whole life. But when you tell them stuff like that, man, that's what it's all about. Guys, I'm talking with Tavarus Hogans. We're getting deep in here, but we're going to get onto the field a little bit. What position or positions were they grooming you for when you came in as a freshman that fall, that summer?
Crazy. And I'm gonna let a little bit of the cat out because Perry Fuel recruited me. And in my acknowledgments, I recognize him for recruiting me. And I also thanked him for not making me transition to defensive back. He was a defensive back coach. But when they recruited me as a receiver. I played receiver. I did a little bit of kick return later in my year, but that's a position that I played the whole time that I was here. And I mentioned I played quarterback my sophomore year in high school. I was 2 for 2 with 2 touchdowns as a quarterback in college.
Nice. I have a side story. Remind me when we get off the talk. I want to tell you about that. Who's playing receiver ahead of you on the depth chart when you check in that first summer?
Yeah, so my recruiting class, I think it was myself, Andre Woods, Bo Lancaster, Todd Yoder, Billy Miller, Zach Winkler. We literally signed 6 receivers.
Mhm.
Um, I think Bobby Jackson was there. There were a couple guys that were there, but Dahauer, it was his recruiting class. So you know how it is. He wants his athletes. So he
Mhm.
gave us probably a lot more liberty and opportunity than most programs would have. So I don't even really recall the depth chart. I know I started the first game, the kickoff classic when we played Notre Dame. I
Mhm.
know myself, Ty Yoder, we ended up starting that year. Zach Winkler started also. So we were kind of in a rebuilding phase, if you will.
Mhm. Wow. Well, it's interesting when you have a coach who ends up only being there for a season. Then you get Coach Woody, and I want to transition to your sophomore year. When you have a new coach come in, and he's a defensive oriented coach, and he's old school, and he's from the pros, but he's been very successful, but he's not the coach who recruited you. Sometimes that's not a good fit for a lot of the guys who were recruited that previous year. Did you have a sense of that? Did the guys in your class, by the way, Damian Charlie says to tell you hello.
That's my guy, Duval. He lives in Jacksonville now.
I know he does. You guys need to hook up with John Newman. What was that like with Coach Woody coming in with your recruiting class being the class before?
Yeah. So the reason I say if I had the opportunity to pick from any college in America, any college in the world, I would choose Vanderbilt. It's because of the adversity that I faced there. It really sets you up and prepares you for the world. So to that point, every year there would be a new crop of receivers. And every year I was fighting for my job, which is fine, but I don't recall ever showing up as number one on the depth chart going into the season.
Mhm.
But that was great for me because I'm human. And sometimes having that number one beside me, complacency will set in.
Mhm.
Corey Chavis gave me some of the best advice that he gave me as a freshman. When we were playing Notre Dame that freshman year, it was the first series. We were running an over route with a post behind it. Yoder had the over route to pull the safety down. I had the post going behind it. Damian Allen drops back. He airs it out. I'm wide open. I kill the cornerback. I'm wide open. I'm about to catch a touchdown. First game of my career in college, first game of the season. Everybody's eyes are there. I look up. Here comes the ball. About a split second before it drops in my hand, the backside safety picks it off.
Mm.
Later that game, Todd Yoder catches a touchdown. He's a freshman. Everybody's in love with him. Now he's the darling.
Mhm.
I think I may have had 9 catches or something that year. It was a bad year. And I kept going back to that. I was like, man, if I could have just caught that touchdown pass, it would have changed everything. And what Corey Chavis said was, he said, I'm glad you didn't catch that pass, because if you would have caught that pass, you would have thought it was easy and you wouldn't have kept working. So
Mhm.
for me, them not putting me number one in the depth chart, they did me a favor
Mhm.
because I had to continue to compete to
Mhm.
get my job. And everybody that was there, I was going to eat. So if somebody's in front of me,
Mhm.
may the best man win.
But that's the true sign of an athlete right there. It's having all the confidence of your abilities and not caring. I mean, you care, of course, but not caring who it is above you. It's the fact they are above you in that depth chart. That's what keeps you hungry.
Yeah.
And I think that when you lose that spark, when you lose that twinkle in your eye, that whatever it is that's deep down inside of you as an athlete, and you can take it off the field. Let's take it and put it in a boardroom. Let's put it in a professional environment. If you don't have that spark, then you've lost your game, and you're not going to be successful either way. But I love that story. I'm glad Corey Chavis had enough wherewithal and the ability to tell you that he's glad you didn't catch that ball because that kept you hungry. Guys, I'm talking with Tavarus Hogans. He's in Jacksonville, Florida. We're talking about Vanderbilt days. I want to come off the field. We all know you were an athlete. We all know you could compete. What was fun for you about Vanderbilt away from football? Or was it fun for you?
It was. I mean, after getting through that freshman year, I feel like Nashville just opened up and showed so much love. I mean, it's always going to be my second city. Like wherever I am, Nashville is my second city, period.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't even know what I can say I liked about Nashville other than everything. Like that, my sophomore year, well, I guess part of it, my freshman year, I was an engineering major.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people, all I did was go to practice and study. The world could have been over with and I would have still been studying.
Yeah.
But I would have had no clue. Like I didn't know anything that was going on, no current events or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I told you I graduated number 6 in my class.
Right.
I want to give some context. Florida, unfortunately, our high school curriculum wasn't the same as some other states' curriculum back then. So I was almost set up not to fail, but I didn't have the same level of preparation that other people had.
Sure.
So my first semester, which was football season, I graduated with a 4.1 in high school. I had a 1.8 at the end of that first semester.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I had a false sense of how to study and how to prepare and all of that.
Well, to be fair to you, you weren't redshirted. You were taking a full load academically, a full load athletically, and somewhere in there, you've got to eat, you got to sleep, you got to work out, and maybe a little bit of a social life, probably not much. But to go from being the big dog at Walton High School, coming out of high school, to getting thrown into the deep end, that's not easy for a lot of guys. But before we get back to you, we got some legends in the house. I got to draw some names. We got Coach Jeff Mad Dog Madden is with us. Hey, Coach. Darren Rothenberg is with us. Dwayne Jones. Everybody's showing up tonight for true Tavarus Hogans. Take us away from academics. We know you got on board eventually academically. We know that. And I know it wasn't easy, but you found your path. You got your sea legs under you, so to speak.
Oh, yeah.
Take us away from academics and athletics. Again, the statute of limitations is long past in the state of Tennessee. Where did you let your hair down? Where did you guys like to go? Did you go visit other campuses? Did you have places near campus that were fun for you?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, when I first came in, my freshman year, after the games, people would go to these frat parties and all of that. We didn't have a great season. I would go straight to my dorm room. Part of it was I needed to study and all of that, but there was nothing to celebrate. So I wasn't one of those type. I couldn't get into that. Yeah. Going into my sophomore year, I changed majors. So I did have a few more friends. I was able to breathe and see some things. But it wasn't really until my senior year, I joined a fraternity. We started going over to TSU and Fisk and out to MTSU every once in a while, just a whole completely different lifestyle that I should have never got myself involved in. I should have stuck to Vanderbilt campus, stayed vanilla, and, kept my sanctity about myself.
But you wouldn't have had any fun.
It would have been different for sure. I definitely wouldn't have some of the stories that we have.
Well, I'll tell you, my story is a little bit similar in that it wasn't until the second semester of my senior year when I saw the end of the light at the end of the tunnel. You can let your hair down a little bit. You're finished with your football obligations. Damian Charlie's laughing hard at you right now.
He probably has pictures.
Oh, you got pictures, Damian? We need to talk. You've already been on this show, so you're off the hot seat. But we want to see some of those pictures. Anyway, you get to the end. You've completed your football journey. And I know I'm kind of moving around a little bit. We got a little bit of time. At what point do you recall, because I recall for me, and a lot of guys do, that your organized athletic career was now at a conclusion? I know you had some brief some sniffs at different pro levels, but where were you? Take us to that time when you realized finally it's time to hang up the cleats and the pads, and we're going to move on to the next phase in life. And that's not easy sometimes.
Yeah, and it was probably a 6-year transition for me.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly enough, and I wrote this in a portion of this in my acknowledgments, Jamie Duncan, I remember being in the weight room with him when we knew that he was getting drafted. Mm-hmm. And I remember telling him one day, I'll see you there. And I think I was a freshman, and I know he thought I was crazy. And listen, I was and still a little bit crazy, but sometimes to reach certain levels of success, you have to have that. Interestingly enough, I signed with Tampa, the team that drafted him. We were in training camp together that year. Got released from them, had a couple tryouts, messed around in the Arena League, went from a regular arena to Arena 2, this small IPFL league. And then I was back messing around with Arena, and I was having back issues, which I still have them today. And I was like, you know what? This was 2 years after XFL did that. I said, you know what? The pain that I'm feeling, it's not worth it. I went to Vanderbilt. They talk about how much money you're going to make with this degree. I figured, even looking at the money back then, if I continued to be a free agent, I would have made decent money for the year that I was playing, but I knew I was still going to have to work. I wouldn't have made enough money if I would have signed those 1-year deals. I wouldn't have made enough money to retire. So putting that load on my body and sacrificing it, it wasn't worth it.
That's what I was going to say. The sacrifice on you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I think you probably realized it was time to make that transition. Now, I want to transition to your professional life, because I'm enamored. I'm fascinated by what you do from an entrepreneur standpoint. We've got several minutes left. I bet not a lot of folks know really what you're up to. So let's dive into, how'd you get into it? Tell us a little bit about it, and let's go from there.
Yeah. So, I was in the corporate space for 17 years, and I just got tired of running in that race. I felt like I was tapped out, and the effort that it would take to get to the next level, what I had to put out wasn't going to be reciprocal to what I would receive in return.
Yeah.
So it's time for me to do something different and not have these corporate careers be as taxing as it was on my body also. Mm-hmm. So I did a little bit of soul searching. Fortunately, I had started a podcast with the company that I left. So I stayed on and did some podcast consulting with them, which is what I do nowadays. I help people start podcasts. I help people grow their podcasts, and I help people along that podcasting journey. I also started doing webinars for them. I obviously knew the company very well, been in the industry 17 years, worked with them 9 years. I knew the brands, I knew marketing, I knew sales. I was in HR. I had a pretty high profile position within the organization. So I helped them start that also. So to transition now, I do podcast consulting. I do leadership and management training based on the DISC model. I think we talked about situational behavior-based leadership. That's what I like to call it. I've recently transitioned to call myself a commitment and accountability coach, because a lot of the people that I work with, mentor, coach, they just need me to reconfirm some of the commitments they've made in life, because we know what we need to do. Mm-hmm. And they really use me as an accountability coach.
I was going to say, having a third party, an outsider looking in, as opposed to trying to, from an internal standpoint, evaluate, I think is so valuable, because you don't have any skin in the game, so to speak. You don't have emotional ties to those people that you're helping to evaluate. I get that. I think that's invaluable.
And my coaching style, I believe everybody has the answers within. I can't tell Bernard what works for him. I can't tell Russ what works for him. I can't tell D. Charlie what works for him. But as a coach, I can help them pull out what works for them. Yeah. So that's my style when it comes to coaching. I started a CBD company that has had some recent wins. I just recently partnered with a company here in Jacksonville, a local company. We grow our hemp and cannabis right here in Lake City, about 60 miles away. That partnership is going to be very fruitful. And the reason I got into that, wanting to find natural ways to help the body and cure some of these mental things that people deal with and physical pains that people deal with, hearing stories of how CBD and different parts of the plant has changed and transformed people's lives. It just sounded like the industry that I wanted to get into, and I'm glad that I did.
Let me pause you right there, because I know even amongst this crowd, you're going to have skeptics because they don't know. And I'm not being critical.
Absolutely.
When I had you on the show a few weeks back to educate.
Yes.
But when we're talking about CBD, we're not talking about the active ingredients in THC. Big difference.
Yeah.
Big difference in legalities. Big difference in how they work with your body's chemistries.
Yes.
Give us a 2-minute lesson. Educate us for 2 minutes what we're talking about here.
Yeah. So the 2-second lesson is THC and CBD, very similar in molecular structure. They're brother and sister. They come from the same plant. THC, it gets you high. It makes you feel that euphoric. Obviously has medicinal benefits. CBD, similar medicinal benefits, non-euphoric. You don't get that high. You don't get those psychedelic feelings that come with THC.
Couldn't have said it any better. Now, if folks are interested offline talking about learning more, maybe interested in your products, give a little pitch. How do they get in touch with you, Tavarus?
www.true7cbd.com. Go down and contact us. If you're local in Jacksonville, let's go to a coffee shop. I love to sit down, drink coffee, and talk shop. But www.true7cbd.com. You can contact me there or find me in Jacksonville at a local coffee shop.
I want to welcome Jason Tomachek has just joined us.
Tomachek. Oh.
You've shared so many awesome life lessons and experiences that you've gone through. I mean, I'm not going to recap them. They're precious the way you've described them. And I love the way you have impacted people. We need more people like you in this world. That's for sure.
Thank you.
What message do you now share? Because I know you've consulted with some high schools. You've worked out with some local high schools. The modern athlete has so many things pulling his or her way. The phone, social media, NIL, transfer portal, wild, wild west in college sports right now. Forget all that. What's a message that you would share with a modern athlete who's coming up through the high school ranks to make sure that they stay on that message, they stay on their path and not get so enamored by all the everything else, you've heard the keeping up with the Joneses. This guy got this deal. This woman got this deal. That's not going to help me. How do I stay on that path if I'm an athlete and I've got my goals?
Yeah, the quicker you can quiet the noise and start hearing and understanding your own feelings and not being driven by outside opinions in media and social media and even mom and dad, like the quicker you can start believing in yourself and making decisions based off of your gut feelings, the better off you're going to be in the long run. I heard a podcast where this lady was saying, anytime you make the decision to trust yourself, it's the best thing that you can do, because then that's how you get to know when you're right and when you're wrong. Mm-hmm. If you're just trusting everybody else, you're never going to be able to make decisions on your own. So the faster you can trust yourself, the better off you're going to be in the long run.
And remember who helped you to get to where you are. All these new people coming into your life, the the hangers on. It may feel good for a minute to have such a large group of followers, and that's all they are. But your real people are the ones who knew you way back. And speaking of somebody I knew way back, one of my former teammates, Dr. Joel Walker out of the Dallas, Fort Worth area. Hey, Joel, Arlington, I'm sorry. Guys, I'm finishing up our conversation with Truth 7, Tavarus Hogans. And man, what a special conversation. I've so enjoyed learning your journey, your experiences, and I'm so grateful that you're sharing them with us because, and I truly mean what I said a few minutes ago about the positive impact you make on so many people. I just think that we need more folks like you. I really do.
Appreciate it.
Well, guys, that's why we do these conversations Tuesday nights. Go into our Facebook group. I've got every Tuesday night except for one from now until Hawaii kickoff week in late August. We got all kind of Commodores that are going to join us this summer. So please keep coming back on Tuesday nights. And remember, anchor down.
Bernard, I didn't know if that earlier one was me signing off, but I can't let you sign off without letting me thank you for bringing me onto the show. What this show has done, it has reconnected me with some of my teammates, some of those names you talked about. And to your point earlier, it's just brought me back to that period of time between 96 and 2000, man. And the abundance of love that I have for those guys that I spent those 4 years with, even if I only spent 1 year or 2 years or 3 years with you, man, this Vanderbilt community, it is something special. So I want to say I love you to all of my teammates, everybody that paved the way before us, and even everybody that's come after us, man. This is an amazing show, and I thank you for the platform and what you're doing here.
Anytime, my brother. Anytime. Hang on before we hang up, okay?
Yes, sir. Now anchor down.
Anchor down. See you guys.